Hello everyone and welcome back to Sun and Fun 51. We're having more fun in 51. Speaking of 51, that has a symbolic meaning for us here on this interview, and I'll share that with you soon. But we're here at the Central Florida Aerospace Academy, CFAA, at Lakeland International Airport, and we are in the midst of Sun and Fun, and this is the International Expo and Fly-In. Florida Aviation Network is here as a project of the National Aviation Safety Foundation, and we bring to you compelling safety derivative information about aerospace and aviation. And I mentioned aerospace, we're going to be talking about more of that through the week, so I'll keep tuned on that. But today we have the opportunity to have an ad lib guest, just spur of the moment. We just went out randomly in the crowd, picking out very interesting, very informed people. And we happened to come across this wonderful woman, Beth.
Thank you.
Beth, welcome to Playing Time.
Thank you for having me.
Actually, it's Central Florida Aerospace Academy. Beth, tell us about 51 and how that number has a symbolism that means something to you.
Well, 51 is significant to me because I work for Stallion 51, and we fly the historic World War II fighter airplane, the P-51 Mustang.
And when you say 51, you also have something to do with a doctor that has something to do with 51.
We do. Part of the benefits of Stallion 51 is we have an in-house aviation medical examiner, Dr. William T. Bush. He's retired Navy. He was dual designated. He was a senior flight surgeon in the Navy as well as a fighter pilot. And now he's a FAA aviation medical examiner.
Our infamous AME.
Yes,
and
sir.
If you haven't been to or met Doc Bush, you need to do it.
Yes, indeed.
It's one of those you put it down in your logbook. I met Dr. Bush. Beth, you, in talking to Doc Bush, he says, when the name Beth Saxon comes up, well, what does she do? She does everything for me. I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have Beth. But you kind of run the whole gamut there. You set up his patients.
I do.
Make sure you screen. We're going to talk a little bit more about how it's important to make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's on your applications. But Beth, you pretty well run the office there, and it's a big team. You have a large team of folks that work there at AvDoc 51.
Well, at Stallion 51, we have a big team, but Dr. Bush and I are just two of us running the office.
That's what I was getting at. I was kind of driving that point home. It's
That's
just the
all
two
right.
of you.
Yes.
And what a team, a dynamic team. And the importance nowadays, and we're all on these things all the time.
Yes.
Everybody's on these things. And you have to fill out an application. Well, you don't use one of these anymore. It's called a pen and paper. But you're on these, and one of your responsibilities there is to make sure that their applications are properly completed. Is that ever a pain?
It is. So the very first step in wanting to become a pilot is you have to fill out an application for the FAA to review before they can consider giving you a medical certificate. That application can be found only online, and it's a rather long link to get to. So we've made it easy. If you go to avdoc51.net, not .com, .net. So A, V as in Victor, D like Delta, O like Oscar, C like Charlie, the number 51.net. There's a link on there, and you find that by going through pilot information. Probably the biggest challenge in filling out this application is that it's so important to put your full name on the application, your full legal name, even if it's 5 separate names. So you have to put the full name on there. Everything from that application through your whole pilot career, all credentials have to match. Or if you get ramp checked or if TSA comes across your path, they're going to make your life a little uncomfortable.
And there's a reason for that.
There is.
Because we are a very litigious or world these days. And we want to make sure that we're talking to who we're really talking to. And you are who you really are. And it's one of the gates that we go through is like when you get your aviation medical. And you go through an operation like you and Doc Bush. And it helps us to make sure that we do things properly.
That's correct.
And that kind of spills off into everything that we do in aviation and aerospace, actually in society in general, is to do things properly. And this is why it is, we were talking earlier about even handwriting. And there's a proper way. Have you ever met somebody that they wrote something to you and you say, "What is this? I don't understand this word"?
Correct, yes.
Drives me bananas. It just really does. And but we need to be patient, need to be kind, and give them an opportunity to fix it. And how do you deal with that when you come across someone in the organization that they have to slow down a little bit in your operation, a customer, a client? How do you deal with that? Because you're very professional, by the way. I bet. And Doc, he's correct. He said, without Beth, I can't do it. I wouldn't be here without Beth.
Well, he's very kind to say that. In the world of aviation, you know, you're flying under the regulations of the government, which is the FAA. So you want to make sure that everything that you do from your application to your pilot license and forward, everything needs to be matched, everything needs to be correct, and it would help if everything, of course, is legible. Probably the best thing to do is to just take your time filling out the application. The application is complicated, it's a little tedious, but to look at the questions carefully and read them thoroughly. I know a lot of foreign pilots fill out the application, and we're always there. If they have any questions before they answer, you know, any of the questions on the application, they can always give us a call and we'll walk them through it. I will give everybody a heads up. There is one question on that application. I'm sorry, the number suddenly escapes me, but the question is a little bogus. Do you wear near vision contacts? Nobody wears near vision contacts. If you have to read something up close, you're going to grab a reader's, you know, glasses you can buy. Yeah, cheaters. But nobody's going to wear near vision contacts. I don't know why the FAA insists on keeping that question on there, but the answer to that question is always a resounding no.
Somebody somewhere they giggle every time that they have that question come up because they did it.
I think so.
They do that. Beth, the importance again, and we want to thank KT for bringing you to us. KT Bud Jones, and speaking of a stickler for details.
She's good at detail.
And she has been that way ever since I've known KT for many, many decades. And she's never changed. It's so nice to have stable folks that they're always the same. It doesn't matter what day of the week they're having a bad day, good day, they're stable. I don't want to keep talking about Doc Bush without him being here, but you talk about stable. This man is stable.
He is stable. You know, one thing I can say about our organization, and that being Dr. Bush, is he thinks outside the box. So our practice has, or actually I should just say Dr. Bush has developed a reputation for helping pilots who are in a little bit of a spot, you know, have a little difficulty trying to get their medical certificate. And most aviation medical examiners, because it is tedious work, they don't want to be bothered with it. So they'll even refer their patients to Dr. Bush. So he's good at working with patients that may have some challenges in the medical field, that the FAA is going to want more information. They may have gotten themselves in a little bit of trouble in the past with a DUI. They might have a history of taking medication that is not approved by the FAA. Dr. Bush knows the paths to take, and he's very good at walking the airmen through that to help them get their medical certificate.
And another thing that in a previous conversation with Doc Bush is that did come up, as a matter of fact, how he helps the airmen. To a point, because Doc Bush is also doing an assessment at the same time he's going through this to see if they're worthy of it. Because sometimes that's a filter. It's a gate that you got to go through, and if you're not able to successfully make it through that gate, then maybe you really shouldn't have a certificate.
I'm glad you said that. I think it's important to know that flying is a privilege. Flying is not a right, and not everybody is cut out to be a pilot. So do your homework and really research what flying is. Some people get in love with the idea of flying and they want to go through the motions only to find out that they're not really cut out to go flying. So do your homework, but keep that in mind that it's a privilege, it's not a right.
A little side note similar to that, but talking with a guy, we were getting ready to go somewhere, and he was going to be PIC, and I noticed him holding his side. I says, "Well, are you feeling okay?" He says, "Yeah, I just got my medical yesterday, and everything's fine." Well, wait a minute, those two don't match. Okay, what does having a piece of paper say that you met a standard yesterday mean how you're doing today? He said, "Well, but I've got my medical, so I'm good to go." He says, no, every day you qualify yourself before you take off. And that's a responsibility. It's in the standards, it's in the rule. If you don't feel like it, you don't go.
No, you shouldn't go.
So it's self-assessment, I guess, is what I'm trying to drive toward here. But it's got to be so frustrating for someone as professional as Doc Bush, is to kind of get that across and exude it. And I don't care, even the most professional people, they get fatigued. I mean, and that's a reason to bounce yourself off of a flight. And answer me this question, Beth. I'm going to put you on the spot. Is fatigue chronic or is it systemic?
Wow, that's a tough question. Self-induced? Can I go there?
You can go there. You can go there. And really, what I'm trying to, can you catch up on sleep?
No, you cannot
Okay.
catch up on sleep.
There you go. That's and there's so many folks that they just get so far behind the power curve on tired. I'm tired today. I just need a one good night's sleep. No, it adds up. If you go for 3, 4, 5 days of being constantly fatigued, it may take 3, 4, 5 days. One night of sleep isn't going to get you through that.
No,
week.
you'll feel refreshed, but you're not rested.
Yeah,
That's
So,
true.
Sleep.
Sleep is important. And I'll give you one example of that. We get foreign pilots that come in for their medical exam to get their FAA certificate. And if their body clock is mixed up because of the international time change, their blood pressure is inevitably going to be higher. And simply because they're tired, so their heart's trying to work harder to keep their body awake and alert, so their blood pressure is going to be high. So I always encourage them to give it, 2 or 3 days, catch up on the new time change, get some rest, eat some food, and then come in and get your medical exam and everything will be fine. But that just gives you one example of what your body is like when it's under stress because of lack of sleep.
And circadian rhythm is for every, I think it's for every 1 hour time change, it takes your body 8 hours to adjust. Does that sound about right?
I'm not familiar with that, but that's a good rule.
It's a rule of thumb. And when I used to work for a company out of Australia, and I tell you, it was coming on from bringing a red eye home from. I took off one time out of Tokyo, nonstop to Chicago. That had me messed up for a long time, and it's something you really can't explain. You can't take a pill for it. You can't read it in a book. If you got jet lag, it's real. A lot of people use that as kind of a go-to fallback, funny term to talk about. No, can you get jet lag coming from California to the East Coast?
Yes, you can. If you don't travel that much, you sure can.
It messes you up.
It does.
Beth, what else is going on? And we want to encourage people to go to Stallion 51 and see the operation there. What would they do if they just wanted to go for a drive and they're in Central Florida, have some time on their hands? What would they find if they drove up to Stallion 51?
Well, I'd welcome them to come out. We're no longer allowing people to go down inside the hangar to get up and close to the Mustangs, but they can certainly come out to the hangar. We have an outdoor balcony and we have glass on the inside if the weather is not that good. But I'd encourage anybody to come out and watch the Mustangs stage, watch them take off, talk to our crew members, our instructors, and even our crew chief about the Mustang. It's pretty impressive to see an airplane that's, 75 plus years old, still flying, still fully operational, very effective, just an amazing aircraft, but just the history that's behind that airplane is. And do your homework to read stories about the guys that flew these airplanes. In my head, I always imagine them as being like me, gray-haired and flying. But when you see that these pilots during World War II were 18, 19 years old with very little flight time, and they're fighting the enemy in those airplanes, it's impressive. It makes you just fall in love with the airplane. Of course, you hear it start up, and it's an unmistakable engine. It's a gorgeous engine.
The sound of freedom.
Yes, indeed.
Pete and Rick.
The brothers.
The brothers.
Yes.
Tell us about Pete and Rick. What do you know about Pete and Rick?
Well, they're brothers. They're twins. They're, without a doubt, in my opinion, and from word of others, they are probably the best in the world when it comes to working on the P-51 Mustang. They are our mechanics. They've completely restored more Mustangs than I'm aware of, and they can detect anything that's not working up to par in that Mustang. The minute the engine starts, they can hear it when the plane comes in, and it's way over my head. I grew up around muscle cars. I know what to listen for. When there's a plug missing or a misfire, they can hear it in a Mustang, and I'm like, I didn't hear that. I don't know what you're talking about. They're good. They are, and they're perfectionists.
And Lee, well, I don't know if Lee would have been as successful as he was without his brothers. And John.
Fair enough statement.
The family.
All of them.
The Louderback clan,
yes,
if you will. And Lee is, he's enjoying doing his falconry and sailing.
He is.
He loves to soar. He's a soar pilot.
Yes, he is.
And I guess that's the closest thing to being a bird. We were talking one day
We
about
tell him
it.
he's half bird.
And I said, Lee, hold your finger, hold your hand out, and wiggle your fingers. And I said, oh, those look like feathers out there. Those aren't fingers. And he loves that. But we do enjoy the professionalism that Stallion 51 brings. And Lee, I know he's kind of rolled back, kind of passed the baton over. But what do we do to encourage young folks to get involved? Anyone under 40 is young these days.
Well, from where I stand, it is.
Well, me too. But we want young folks to get in, and I'm sure that you encourage when you see a family with small kids. It kind of opens their hearts just kind of open up.
Yes.
When you see kids around an airport.
Exposure. I think kids need exposure. I think it would be a great idea for schools, whether that's part of the STEM program or not. Do a field trip to an airport. Let these kids see airplanes up close. Let them talk to pilots. Let them watch videos on airplanes flying. And once they're old enough, and I think 10 or so,
14.
14
in a sailplane, you can
in a
solo
sailplane,
at 14.
Get them in the cockpit and take them for a flight. Let them have a discovery flight so they can see what's out there. And then just encourage it more than anything, really encourage it. My father flew a little 49 Air Coupe when I was growing up, and I would go fly with him. But he never once said anything to me or any of the rest of us about learning how to fly. So it never crossed my mind. But looking back on it now, if I had a do-over, I would definitely pursue flying. I think flying would be a blast.
It's never too old to get started.
According to my husband, it is.
No. You could just started. Let's get started today.
I would love to.
Talking about your past and with your dad. I love to see families walking around, and we'll casually start talking, and their kids will be, "How old are you?" "I'm 12. So do you realize in 2 years you could fly a glider?" And their eyes get big, and really? They look up at mom and dad. "Can I?" And that's a start. That's all. Sometimes that little spark is all it takes to get to set the hook. And our astronauts, where'd they get started?
Probably at a small airfield, and
Indeed.
got some glider time in to boot.
Beth, we're going to give you a couple seconds to wrap this up.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Pursue flying. Do your homework, and look for an aviation medical examiner. I know Doc is not, accessible to everybody, but do your homework on finding an AME, and if you're not happy with the AME, I know some guys are just in it because it's a side to their practice, and so they may not be completely open to aviation. But find one that knows about aviation and loves aviation, and then don't let anybody get in your way. And that goes even with instructors. Find an instructor, do your homework. If you find an instructor that you're not quite seeing eye to eye on, go to the next one, because the whole key is to have fun. Have fun, because flying is just a huge world, huge world. And if I could add one more thing, I have found, since I've been in this world for 12 years, that aviation is a small world. And every pilot I've ever come across is more than happy to give you information, to help you out, point you in the right direction. So any young pilot that's out there, don't be afraid to ask questions.
And that little piece of paper that you said, a medical certificate,
Yes.
it's also your student pilot's license.
It is.
So that's your start.
Yes.
So go get your medical through Doc Bush.
Correct. Come see us.
Beth, thank you so much for
You're
your time.
very welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're going to wrap this one up, and we're going to see you next interview. More fun in 51.